Thanks, Linda. I've never had an introduction that was as short and sweet. He's crazy. That was basically, I appreciate that. And sorry I got the dress code wrong. I don't match the chairs. Actually, this is kind of a strange conference, one that I never thought. First of all, it's about entrepreneurial gatherings, about the market economy and capitalism and all the rest of it. And we're holding it in San Francisco. You got to be kidding me! For those of you who aren't familiar, this might be the least business-friendly place on the planet right now. But we're holding it here. To give you an idea, this was $5, not counting tax and tip, which places it about 10 times the price of gas here in the city. So if you all want to do a new startup, be the Diet Coke distributor here in this hotel. Anyhow, I did tweet this morning that I was going to be speaking to nearly 200 entrepreneurs from outside of the U.S. And back in the old days, the entrepreneurs used to come here, start their companies, and make a lot of money. Now they come here, take our ideas, and go home and make a lot of money. So things have changed since I was a young kid and doing this here in the Valley. But I'm excited to try and share with you in a few short minutes some, I could either tell you one deep, involved, and touching story, or I could give you a lot of little tidbits. And I thought I'd give you a lot of little tidbits in no particular order. I would also like to thank you for my little bag of goodies and all the handouts. And I guess formerly famous and important CEOs get tequila. Entrepreneurs get these, which is, I guess, what you need to be an entrepreneur. So there you have it. Can I say that? I'm not a CEO of a public company, so I can be out of control now. Anyway, I asked everybody in Endeavor, what does everybody want to hear? Well, how we got started, all the rest of it. I'm not sure that's a terribly great story. It was 4 27-year-olds back in the olden days. We really got to follow in the footsteps of Steve Jobs, who was the first really inexperienced, semi-ignorant, young, non-credentialed CEO to go found a company, and he really laid the groundwork. So when there were 4 27-year-olds who in 1982 went to get some VC money, nobody batted an eye, even though I had 3 years business experience, which was more than the other 3 founders combined. And we raised $4.5 million the first year. We started on February 24th. We were profitable in May, and we did $8.5 million in our first year, 39 the second, 115 million the third, 250 the next year, and then it went to 510, and then to $1 billion. So that was kind of our growth ramp. I might have a couple dollars off on the ramp, but it was a pretty crazy thing. Now, how did it all happen? Basically, it was a Stanford and a Berkeley University startup. Andy Bechtelsheim had invented the Stanford University Network workstation under a grant while a PhD student at Stanford. And so it was the Sun Network. So that's how we got our name, on the Stanford University Network workstation. And Andy was looking to get people to build his computer, his desktop workstation, but they weren't doing a very good job. He was licensing it out to different people, and Vinod Khosla, my classmate from Stanford Business School, who I got to know mainly because he always seemed to be the last guy at the party, at every business school party. Now, don't ask me how I knew, but trust me, he was there till the end, and he and I became good friends. And so he found Andy and said to me, let's quit your job. He said, let's go start this company. And then we went to Berkeley and found the top software engineer for Unix from Berkeley named Bill Joy, and the 4 of us started this thing. And it was a nice combination of hardware and software and business school, somebody who'd done it before, and somebody who was very experienced when we got started. That's a joke. And the good thing about it is we didn't know any better. Ignorance is bliss. And that's an important thing to remember. If you if you actually knew how hard it was, you probably wouldn't do it. So don't worry about that. So I'd like to give you some suggestions, some quick ideas and thoughts to think about. And Linda touched on the one I think that's the most important, and that's the crazy thing. And I've said for many, many years, you have to have a controversial strategy. It must be controversial. In fact, the more controversial, the better chance you have of making a lot of money. If everybody thinks what you're doing is the right thing to do, everybody's going to do it. Everybody does it. There's no differentiation. If there's no differentiation, there's no pricing power. No pricing power, you're not going to get a profit. No profit, you're not going to be able to hire anybody, and you're not going to make any money. That's like walking into an interview and they say, so why should I hire you? And say, I breathe. Fogging a mirror is not going to differentiate you at all. The real hard part of the controversial strategy is it's actually pretty easy to come up with a controversial. It has to be correct. Because a controversial strategy that's wrong is just plain stupid. So I can't necessarily help you with that one, but don't be alarmed if it's controversial. And our controversial strategy was to share. We used open interfaces, open technologies, open components, and really were able to, as we called it, build a Ferrari out of spare parts. It got us to market quickly. We had the whole world doing R&D for and with us and against us, but it was a better strategy than trying to beat IBM with their own mainframe technology, which wasn't possible. So the next point I would share with you, besides being controversial, is you got to pick one of two strategies. And my suggestion is to be quotable and to be loud and noisy and pick a fight. We always tried to pick a fight with the number 1 and number 2 company and say we were number 3. And then we would make lots of noise. And we used the media. And I would explain to the media, hey, I'm going to give you lots of good quotes, treat me right, and I'll bring you some more. And we had this little deal. And I said, just make sure we're on the front page, spell our names correctly, and I'll give you lots of outrageous quotes. Because we couldn't afford advertising. So people think I don't like Bill Gates. It was theater. Really, truly. I mean, it was, Ballmer and I went to school together, as did Gates and I. It was all theater, and, quotes are how you get remembered and why I'm up here today. People remember me for a quote a long time ago, the network is the computer. And by the way, I would encourage you, people are still figuring that out. But to think about that, because that should be part of your new entrepreneurial strategy. They call it cloud computing. Why didn't I think of cloud in the 1980s? But that is a big one. And then the other one that actually is all the rage is a statement I made quite a while ago, which was, you have no privacy, get over it. And my chief privacy officer just went crazy on me because she thought that was the worst thing I could possibly say, but it's obviously true. You have no privacy. Ask Anthony Weiner or anybody out there, for those of you who follow U.S. politics. Interestingly enough, most of the new startups here in the Valley are all about invading your privacy, figuring out how to profile you even more precisely than even you know. And so using the cloud to invade your privacy tends to be the number one venture startup, other than using Obama stimulus money to do something green, which tends to be the other way people get things started up. If you're going to go start a company and it's your first one and your net worth isn't really terribly high, my suggestion is use somebody else's money. There's a bunch of folks who are going to get up on stage, use theirs. Practice starting up companies on somebody else's money. Once you get good at it and you've won a couple times and you have your own money, then you might want to use your own. But there's no reason not to use somebody else's money in there. I know it's harder in other geographies, but you know what? The VCs are from the U.S. are starting to go out to other places because there are some more friendly economic environments than the U.S. to invest money. And as your economies develop and people are saving a bit more money, there will be a better opportunity. And it doesn't necessarily hurt to give away some of your company now to get that capital in, because money does help you fight that battle. Another piece of advice is everybody has a mission and a strategy. If you've gone to business school, you learn, got to have a mission, got to have a vision, got to have strategies, got to have objectives and tactics, and you write this all up and it's called a business plan. And that's a necessary component of what you're doing. Now the problem is you shouldn't do it in hard copy, you should do it online, because it's going to change. And I tell everybody who comes into any startup that I'm involved in, things are going to change above, below, and around you faster than any other place you've ever been. And be prepared for that and to accept change. Because, I don't think that Apple knew that word processing was going to be their number one market. I don't think Microsoft realized that Lotus 1-2-3 would be the reason people bought their computer at the start. I don't think eBay knew that Beanie Babies was going to be the thing that happened. And I don't think Google got started knowing that PageRank search, selling words to the highest bidder every day, was going to be their business model. So you got to be prepared to get lucky, to be opportunistic, and have that plan. But once you get rolling and you kind of settle in on what you're going to be doing, and as you're growing, hopefully you'll get to the point where you need to think a little bit about having a cause. And we didn't really, we weren't very explicit about our cause at Sun Microsystems for quite a while, although everybody sort of knew it was, and that was we wanted to get everybody connected to the network while doing no harm to the planet. So that was our cause, and we actually articulated it in the kind of the second half of our existence. But a lot of people liked that. It was sharing, getting people connected, and being much more eco in terms of the amount of energy we used to go deliver our computing power. So very powerful in the sense that that made a lot of people want to buy from us, sell to us, work with us, and work for us, and stay with us. People have basic needs, food, shelter, water, all those sorts of things. But they also have a higher order bit, some psychic income, as I call it, and there's nothing wrong with stating what that higher order cause is for your organization. And I kind of cornered Linda in the speaker's room, and I pinned her down and I said, "Why do you do this?" I didn't want to know what she was doing. I said, "Why are you doing this?" Because I wanted to hear what her cause was, what her reason. And she had a very powerful one, and she said she wanted to share the ideas of entrepreneurship, which have been so strong here in the U.S., with all of these other countries and cultures around the world. So she has a very, very strong cause, and you can see that in the passion and the energy she has in leading this organization. You need to have the same kind of passion and energy wrapped around a cause that Linda has for Endeavor, or people won't want to follow you, people won't want to affiliate with you. And that's an important thing that you need to do. Next thing I would share with you is if you're going to use somebody else's money, you're going to have a board of directors, because they're going to want to have oversight. They're going to want to have governance. And you will hate that word, governance. It's like the worst babysitter you ever had growing up. So you have an opportunity most of the time. The big money folks are going to put their own people in there. But when you have a chance to put somebody on your board of directors, choose wisely. Companies do fail because of weak boards. And almost always, a weak board is a contributor to the failure of a company. So do not underestimate how important it is to have somebody who's hopefully been there. And that means they've been in the piñata. And if you're the CEO, you understand you're in a piñata. You're in there like this, you can't see anything, and people from random directions are taking 2x4s and hitting you. And as soon as you protect yourself from that flank, somebody's hitting you from another blind side. And life in the piñata means you need people on the board who understand that, who have been there, and when you stumble, they don't walk in and say, "You bozo, what's wrong with you?" Because anybody who's been a CEO has made a ton of mistakes, way more mistakes than anybody else has, because they don't, you know what's the problem with being a CEO? They solve the easy problems down below, and they only bring you the unsolvable problems. That's the worst part about being a CEO, is you never get to fix anything because they only bring you the unfixables. Do you want to lose your left arm or your right leg? You know, by the time it gets to you, those are the choices you have. And I can remember going home many times to my wife Susan and saying, I didn't do anything good today. And that's the way you feel. And you need a board who understands that, who can support you, who helps attenuate rather than amplify the bad news and lets you enjoy the good news. Because you know what? You don't have any peers in your company. And really the board is as close as you're going to get. And if they haven't been in the saddle, if they've just been a VC their whole life, for instance, or if they're a banker, or if they're a politician or a lawyer or some other thing, they don't know. It's a different job. I remember getting a job was a big change. And then I remember becoming a manager was a big change. And then becoming a second level manager where I managed managers was a big change. And then I became CEO. And that was like going light speed. That was, you know, a Star Wars moment where you went and the whole world just changed. And so try to build a board that has former CEOs on it, not current. Current CEOs are too busy doing this. So you want to try and get some former CEOs. All right. Some of the biggest decisions you will make when you get started are make, buy, and share, protect. And make, buy, I think everybody understands. What do I make versus what do I buy? And that's a huge question. That is the most strategic question you will make. And everybody wants to know, what should I make versus what should I buy? Well, it's very simple. If you know who your customer base is, bring them in and listen to the questions they ask. And that will tell you who you need to hire. You need to hire people that can answer the questions that they ask. Now, if they come in and say, you know, what do you put in your hamburgers? Then you're probably a restaurant and you ought to hire chefs. But if they don't ask that question, you probably ought to outsource the lunchroom and buy your burgers. And I'm trying to give you a simple answer, but it's very, very simple. If you talk to your customers, listen to questions they ask, that'll be the clues as to who you needed to hire. Everybody else, you ought to outsource as much of the rest of it as you can. And why? Because your business is going to change above, below, and around you, and your direction is going to change so fast, it'll make your head spin. The worst thing we ever did at Sun was sign leases longer than 2 years. Could have saved Sun billions of dollars if we had always bought on the spot market for facilities. So buy on the spot market wherever you can. Going long, you'll guess wrong. Hey, that's good. Going long, you're going to guess wrong. I'm a poet. And then the other decision that you have to make strategically is, what do you share versus what do you protect from an intellectual property perspective? Now, just like we had a different strategy, Steve's was more successful, but Steve didn't go out and be quotable. Steve Jobs understands the power of the secret. And that's another way to go, but I don't recommend that because none of you are big enough to be a secret. Apple can afford the power of the secret, and it's very, very powerful. Apple's also big and strong enough that they can afford the power of proprietary technology. So any of you who use Apple stuff will know it doesn't work with anything else. It's very closed. You got to buy an iPod, you got to buy an iPad, an iTouch, you got to buy the Mac, and then you got to use Mobile Me. You're stuck. And that's why, he's the new Microsoft, just with better graphics. Just as many bugs, just as much administration, but it looks prettier. And my wife is happy. If she's happy, everybody happy, right? I digress. So Steve has chosen to not share anything and go proprietary. You might not be able to do that. You might need more community support, more people helping to innovate and integrate to whatever technologies you have. But that's a big strategic decision. Sun made the decision to share a lot of our intellectual property and our APIs. And in the later stages, I think we overshared and we got bought. And then Larry Ellison shut down all that sharing stuff. You know, you can't win the America's Cup boat race by sharing. So, another suggestion, I'm getting down here to short minutes, never give up on a sale. If you're selling into the enterprise as opposed to doing a consumer thing, you might have a big distributor if you're a consumer. Never assume you've lost a deal. I always say a deal's never lost, it's only postponed. And you just have to have that attitude. Selling is very easy. For those of you who went to business school, I could teach selling in about 2 minutes. You walk in and say to the customer, here's my product. Can I have the order? They'll say no. You say why. They'll explain it. You go away, you fix it. You come back and say, I fixed it. Now can I have the order? They will say no. You say why. You get the point? Right? After about 15 times, they'll go, all right, here's the order. Get out of my face. Just remember that. No is a key to yet another feature for your product or service. That's all it is. Too many people think no means get out of my... No means just why is a very powerful question. To say, I'll be back. You don't even ask. You just say, I'll be back. Don't bother them and try and oversell. Just go back, fix their problem. Don't argue with them. Go back and fix it. Even if you don't do anything different, come back with a different pitch. But so many people want to go argue, and that's just not the right way to go. But just keep going back. I'll never forget when we were starting, we had Sun workstations, and there was 4 major software CAD applications, computer-aided design applications that ran. And Apollo was the other startup that we were competing against. And there was Autotrol, computer vision, something CAD, and something whatever. Anyhow, the 3 of the big ones had moved over to Apollo, and none were running on the Sun workstation. But computer vision was the biggest of all and had 40 or 50% market share, maybe even more. And so we had to win the computer vision deal or we were out of business. This was 2 years into it. And we went and we sold like crazy, and we were doing everything we could and all the rest of it. And all of a sudden, Vinod Khosla, who's from Delhi, was our CEO at the time. He got a phone call. I was in his office, I'll remember. It was about 2 p.m. And it was at closing time in Boston, and Computer Vision called up the purchasing guy and said, we are formally advising you that we have chosen your competitor, and we are commencing negotiations to close the contract, and we are formally shutting down all conversation with Sun Microsystems. Thank you very much. And Vinod went pale, and if you've met Vinod, that's hard to do. He hung up the phone, and I said, what's wrong? He said, CV just told us we lost. And I went pale, and I said, what do we do now? And I'll give Vinod an enormous amount of credit. He said, let's launch a proposal that they can't refuse. So we put all of our technology in escrow. We offered free manufacturing rights. We offered super aggressive pricing. We invented a product we didn't have and wrote the spec down. And at 5 o'clock, 3 hours later, we FedExed to the 12 people we knew this new proposal. And then Vinod and 2 of our engineers got on a red-eye that night and showed up in Computer Vision Boston headquarters the next morning and started calling people and saying, will you come talk to us? Did you see our proposal? Nobody would come near us. We were radioactive. So finally, about 11 o'clock in the morning, one of the engineering VPs came down to the lobby and said, listen, your proposal's interesting, but go away. You can't be seen here. Just go away and stay tuned. Sure enough, Apollo got real arrogant in their negotiations. Thursday, we got a phone call later in the week, and they said, meet us in Chicago with a word processor and a printer and a lawyer. and we'll do a deal. We got there Friday, worked through Saturday, announced the deal on Monday, and blew away Apollo. And so that's just a story of, just don't take no for an answer, but don't argue, right? Just give them something better. Now I'm going to give you a personal suggestion. Go start your company before you get encumbered financially and with kids, because you're going to work a bazillion hours. Next suggestion, the most important strategic decision you'll make in your business career, this might surprise you, is who you choose to have babies with. I chose very well. I got lucky. I waited till I was 39 and through most of the entrepreneurial phase of my life. But I guarantee you, whoever you have children with is going to be a big part of your life. And if you pick the right person, it'll make you a better leader, a more focused leader, and a leader who can spend more time on your business without feeling bad about leaving your kids home alone. So very, very important. And I will tell you that very few people interview and check references on who they marry as much as they will the VP of Finance. Think about it. Go meet the parents. Go meet the siblings. Go meet the crazy uncles. Meet everybody. Genetics matter. They are in there, and if they aren't there in your wife, they'll show up in your kids. So check it out. And by the way, if they were formerly married, you have to interview the ex. Would you ever hire somebody who got fired from a previous company without talking to somebody from? And we don't do it. I'm over time. Have fun. Make it fun. We always had a saying, kick butt, which meant win, and have fun. You're the leader. Make it okay to have fun. Have fun yourself. Let them have fun, because they're all going to work a million hours. Next suggestion, learn Mandarin. And finally, I want to share with you one other thing that's near and dear to me. I started a .org, a nonprofit, sort of like Endeavor, only attacking a different problem, and that's education. And a piece of education. It's called Cricketorg. I have my business cards here by the projector here for anybody who wants to grab one with the website. But Cricketorg is a K-12 educational website that is hosting nearly 50,000 learning assets that are free and open source in multiple languages around the world. What I would like you all to do is evangelize in your home country, in your home school districts, any teachers, parents, or students that you know, and get people to donate to the website, use the website, share. We spend $15 billion a year in the U.S. every year, annually, once a year on curriculum. And you know what? 10 plus 10 was, is, and will be 20 for a long time. And we spend $130 on a third grade math textbook when the one I learned on worked just fine. And I think we can change the world and improve everybody's lot with free open source, online, self-paced, on-demand, real-time scored, multimedia, web-enabled curriculum, as opposed to stupid textbooks. So please check it out. If you get really, really successful and go public, donate and make it happen. Anyhow, my email address is on the card, or you can follow me on Twitter. Scott McNealy, I think, is my handle on Twitter, something similar to that. Oops, dropped my ball. So anyhow, thank you all. Good luck. Have fun. Go for it. There is no risk if you're using their money. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.